Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. In today's video, we look at one of those episodes from Season 2 where the parents think they're failing their kids, but by whose standards? Today's episode is titled Future Tense. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. The episode begins in the front yard of the Loud House, where the family see their new neighbors, the Yates, moving in. When the parents go over to greet the new neighbors, and see how sophisticated the Yates children are with how their parents are helping to enrich their lives, Rita and Lynn Sr. begin to think they're not enriching their own children enough. So they have their kids take up extracurricular activities and whatever it takes to make them as well-rounded as their neighbors. But when they see their progress has turned their kids into anything but their usual selves, the parents tell them to go back to having fun like they were before, and even the Yates family decide to join in on the fun. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. This is one of those episodes where I really wanted to not find a lot of things wrong with it, because I do understand what the Loud parents were trying to do. But it's also hard not to find a lot of things wrong with this one because of how they approach the possibility of failing their kids. That's why I consider Mr. and Mrs. Loud to be both a positive and a negative in this episode, although I lean much more towards the latter. On the bright side of things, parents only want what's best for their kids, and a good parent wouldn't want to see their children not reach their full potential. The parents had good intentions, and there's really nothing wrong with trying to take up an interest in anything considered culturally enriching. But these intentions were greatly misdirected towards the wrong kinds of activities. For instance, what does interning at the mayor's office have anything to do with the kind of person Luann is? Sure, life isn't always about laughs, and she does end up helping to solve the city parking crisis as a result, but how does this help her reach her full potential as, you know, a comedian? Same thing for wanting Luna to speak better English, even though it was funny of her to make a very much appreciated and grammatically incorrect Pink Floyd reference. It has nothing to do with her reaching the full potential of who she is, a musician. Call it a hunch, but it wouldn't surprise me if the parents thought putting their kids through all these activities and volunteer work was a very subtle way of conditioning their kids to be more like the Yates children. Compared between their respective behaviors, I think it's clear which kids are more well-behaved and organized, but I'll get back to the Yates children in just a bit. The biggest thing that annoyed me about the Loud parents is when they first said, "We're failing our kids!" I thought, how so? They claim their kids weren't well-rounded enough. Maybe they aren't well-rounded in everything, but they do have individual talents that if they pursued them long enough, they could reach their full potential in who they are and what they can do. Even the Yates kids have at least one talent they're said to excel in: computer coding, math, music, and foreign languages. Now let's see, who does that remind us of in the Loud family? Oh yeah, Lisa, Luna, and Lisa. You know, it amazes me how there are at least two kids in the Loud family who come off as either the most culturally enriched or academically inclined out of everyone else, and yet the parents thought that wasn't enough? Luna knows how to play the violin. Among other instruments I seriously doubt Belle Yates could ever play. And Lisa is the only one who has shown an interest in opera, going back as far as For Bros About to Rock. Don't even think about it! On top of that, Lisa is a certified genius. She's been shown to be smart with technology and math and science, and she's had international conferences with people 3 and 4 times her age. She's well-rounded enough. She outright said she was on the verge of finding the cure for H1N1. I'm pretty sure ending a pandemic is going to get her further in life than making ceramic gravy boats. You see, that's the whole problem to this episode. Rather than trying to get their kids well-rounded in things that interest them, some of which can create a successful future in the long run, Mr. and Mrs. Loud had their kids doing things that either don't play to their character or activities they simply reject. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with wanting to expose your kids to a bit of culture, but they never asked any of them if they were having fun with what they were doing. Clearly they were not having fun, and you could tell by their facial expressions they would much rather be somewhere else doing something more up their alley. But I have to admit, positive results were achieved, and that's all the parents wanted. However, it came at the cost of their kids refusing to do anything that would just hold them back in life, and that's where the "failing our kids" quote came back to bite the parents very, very hard. Their kids were already the polar opposites of the Yates kids in terms of behavior prior to the forced enrichment, and they still ended up as the polar opposites of the Yates kids after gaining said enrichment. These parents effectively sucked all the joy out of their kids and turned them into all work and no play. Well, that's what the mom and dad deserve for trying to be on the same level as their neighbors. So now let's talk about the Yates family. Lori said, "I'm really starting to not like the Yateses." I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but I honestly cannot stand this family. They are the big ol' smiling definition of Gary Stu and Mary Sue, and I despise those kinds of characters with a passion. They come off as fundamentally perfect and are way too happy. Seriously, they are smiling with their eyes closed for almost the entire episode, and it just comes off as very disturbing. What's even weirder is how quickly the kids were able to adapt to the idea of having fun, something the father questions. Fun? What's the purpose of that? I'm like, what? Seriously? You never let your kids unwind a little bit with non-educational activities like kicking a ball around? I don't know what kind of upbringing these kids had, but I'll just assume the parents started this well-rounded enrichment when they were very young and taught them learning to be smart in math and mastering the Korean language was considered fun. Perhaps they already had an interest in those things and the parents just expanded upon them. In fairness, I can't say Mr. and Mrs. Yates are terrible parents. Their kids do come off as very well educated, and someone like Beatrix does have a promising future in the world of computers, but I believe the failure of these parents comes down to robbing their children of having a real childhood. Even if these kids genuinely enjoy doing what they're doing, have they ever been given the time to do something that doesn't involve cultural enrichment? That's why I questioned their behavior at the end when they were having fun with the loud kids. They didn't appear to be socially awkward with what they were doing. The parents even admit they never thought about letting their kids unwind in a competitive world. And don't give me, well, the father said they could squeeze in 7 minutes of fun. They should have just canceled their trip to the museum completely when they saw their kids having fun. And maybe they did. Who knows? No matter what, this family still rubs me the wrong way. I guess the only interesting thing about them would be the dad is voiced by Barry Williams and the mom is voiced by Maureen McCormick, who appeared on the Brady Bunch as Greg and Marcia respectively. And let's just say if you know the history between these two when they worked on the show and how their characters were handled in the comedy parody movie from the 1990s, you can see why these two playing the parents is actually kind of funny. Overall, I really tried to enjoy this episode for what it wanted to offer when it came to raising kids with good intentions, but there's no denying the loud parents had a plan that achieved the results they wanted, but at the cost they didn't expect. They couldn't see that their kids were not showing an interest in what they were doing, and they failed to help them reach their full potential in things that make up who they are. Again, Lisa and Luna are the biggest examples of being the most enriched. Even Lynn Jr. with her sports-driven competitiveness, but the parents buried their natural talents in favor of other pursuits that just weren't for them. The goal of well-rounding the kids was ultimately a bust, and the parents only had themselves to blame. I understand it can be a competitive world, and not realizing one's full potential is bad, but one also has to try and succeed, and possibly fail, in fields that are best suited for them. Maybe the parents wanted some of their kids to have backup plans in case their dreams of making it in sports, music, and comedy didn't work out? That's something to think about. And as far as the Yates family goes, again, I couldn't stand them no matter how educated they were, but that's what happens when you write characters that seem to have zero flaws. If you like them, great. For me, I'm glad they don't appear anymore. With that said, I give Future Tense a 5.5 out of 10. Well, folks, that concludes my review of Future Tense. Whether you consider this episode to be an example of bad parenting is up to you, but at least these parents tried to get their kids interested in other things. Still doesn't make it a good episode though, but that's just me. So what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.